Afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. Was reading a bunch of articles on negative interest rates, watched this Max Kaiser interview. I'll leave links down in the description for all this stuff. Now, the Max Kaiser interview, I found something in there very interesting. Max Kaiser said something that goes like this. He said that when a sovereign nation issues a debt with a negative yield to it, what they are saying is that we are going to borrow more money than what we promised to pay back, and that, by definition, is a default. When you pay back less money than what you borrow, is a default on your loan. Now, the other thing that he said is that the same thing that is meant to raise price or asset price inflation, this negative yielding debt is meant to raise the house prices and everything else. These asset price inflation has a disinflation quality to it as money gets sucked out of the system, right? It borrows more money than it promises to pay back. I found that very interesting. Anyway, like I said, I'll leave links down in the description for all this stuff. I've been trying to find a logical argument for negative yielding debt. And outside of speculation, outside of the idea that if rates, even though rates are negative and I paid a premium for this bond, knowing that I'm going to get paid back less than what I loaned out, basically paid for this thing, if I hold it to maturity, I know that interest rates are going to drop into the future and therefore I can sell this thing for a profit. That is the speculation is the only reason why anybody would buy a negative yielding debt. Now, buy a negative yielding bond, like sovereign debt. Negative yielding sovereign debt. Now, I can see positive yielding, at least you get some sort of interest. Even if it doesn't match inflation, at least you get some sort of interest behind it. And this is one of the main arguments about bonds throughout my entire life, was that you buy bonds because it's better than holding cash, because at least they pay a better of an interest rate than cash, which just sits there and doesn't do anything. Now, holding cash doesn't have a negative interest rate to it, so it doesn't make sense to buy negative yielding debt when you can just hold cash. Yeah. And this was one of the other arguments out there, is that, that this guy was trying to say that it makes sense to have negative yielding debt out there because a lot more retirees are living longer, and therefore they are willing to forego their spending needs right now for the future, and they're willing to do that at a price cost, which doesn't make sense, because it would make more sense just to hold your money in cash, right, than to lose it throughout time through a negative yielding debt. So I could not wrap my head around that guy's argument. But like I said, I'll leave links down in the description for all you guys. Maybe you guys can explain that one to me. One of them, the argument was that everything comes with a cost to store it, whether you store grain or gold or whatever. And banks should be no different, in that when you store your money with the bank, that it should come with a cost. And that's why negative yielding debts make sense. So that doesn't make sense to me, because a bank is willing to give you a interest on your savings, because when you deposit money with the bank, they put that money on their asset sheets, which offsets their liabilities and makes it more profitable to them. They don't actually loan out your money, they just use it to make their money more profitable. Anyway, so saying that a bank should charge somebody to hold their money, that doesn't make sense. That does not. I sit there and I think about it like this, because it doesn't, I can't fathom this as a concept. And then what else did I read? Oh, active fund managers. This doesn't really have to do with the negative rates, but it kind of does. Active investors, active money investors are getting fired left and right. They're losing their jobs like crazy. Investors who've been paying people to basically handle their money for them, handle their investments, are withdrawing their money and going more into passive investing, where they just put a set amount of money towards the S&P 500, and that's all they do. They just have this set passive investing that they do, where instead they used to give money to a guy who would just constantly shuffle their portfolio around, constantly looking for the best place to position their money. So yeah, and from what I understand, these guys are using that low interest rates as one of the arguments, meaning that they just don't really have the room to charge these fees and commissions and everything else. And it makes me wonder, why Bill Gross got out of it, a couple years ago, just before all these negative interest rates started hitting. Anyway, because you guys remember Bill Gross, he's like the bond king, right? Anyway, I found those to be pretty interesting. Anyway, Uneducated Economist, you guys let me know.